Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
I'm awesome. We had to put our spectacles back on.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a little farsighted, nearsighted, however you want to call it. So I have to see what's going on.
well, thank you for joining.
Thank you
What's
for the
in
invite.
your cup? Had to get my fancy cup. My friends was talking about me and my cup, but I'm excited about it. So, thank you for joining, Mr. Carter. I am extremely excited having you on tonight. On here we talk about a little bit of everything. Everything relates back, to a couple of ways: spiritual, relational, emotional. Um, we know from what I have been able to inquire that you say you balance in a couple of things. We work in corporate America. We're a father, entrepreneur. You're in ministry, so all of those things can be a whole singular job within themselves. So let's talk about how you ended up in corporate America. How did you, what, what about it was enticing to you in the beginning? And how long have you been working corporate America?
I started off in retail. So I started off in retail, and when I moved to Charlotte, the retail life was fascinating and exciting, but it was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So for the peak seasons, the times that retail needed me were the times that I wanted to be home. Holidays,
Yeah.
weekends, summertime, things that were going on with the family that were needed, but the job needed me as well. And so I finally said, "Hey, I want to do something with a little more scheduling stability, where I
Mm-hmm.
had to master it." And so I went to retail. I left retail in 2009, 2010 for corporate America in a office setting in a field that I knew nothing of. The only thing I wanted to do was to provide for my family and to be there. So I was willing to sacrifice, my love for retail because I actually loved being in the retail environment.
Okay.
However, corporate America provided a lot more structure.
Yes, I can
And
imagine
it
so.
wasn't until I had a chance to witness the corporate America structure that I realized that's what I needed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been there ever since. Some days it requires a full 12 to 14 hours of my day. And then there are some days where I can skate by doing an hour of work. So it balances it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where I have to learn how to take advantage of the times that I'm not needed as much.
Okay. So with that little bit, so once you got into the corporate America realm and you found, okay, hey, this structure is exactly what I needed. It's, helping I can be, everywhere I need to be. What happened to your love of retail during that time? Did you just kind of push that over to the side or?
I put it to the side because it wasn't as important. This was
Mhm.
during a time where my oldest daughter, she was 9. My youngest daughter hadn't been born yet. And so, right at the time where I was falling out of love with retail, um, my first marriage was going through a divorce. And so it was a big transition between um, the divorce, the retail ending, and learning a new job. I knew that, for
Mhm.
instance, in corporate America, I had to put all of my skills to use because I didn't have anything to fall back on.
All right.
I knew that I didn't want to lose that connection with my daughter, and at the same time, I didn't want to be unemployed.
Right. Yeah, because employment is important.
Yeah, and for me, I was told years ago that by an older gentleman that uh, an uh, an enemy of my money is an enemy of me, and so at
Hmm.
that particular time, fear of learning a job was my enemy. So I
Mm-hmm.
put all of my resources into learning the job. I had no degree in that particular field, so it was even more challenging because my peers, that's what they were going to school for.
School for.
So I knew how to manage friends, but I just did not know that particular field. But I'm still here.
You made it. You adjusted, adapted, and you overcame. Um, I want to ask Jess if we can delve a little bit into it, considering that you did change jobs for um, work life balance as a man. How did that affect you emotionally when you went through that shift, but you ended up getting divorced?
For me, the divorce was looming prior to the retail ending,
Hmm.
and so I used it as a almost as if it was a catalyst to start something new.
Okay.
It was one of those things where the career was new. I was in a city that my only roots at the time were through my marriage.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
so once the marriage ended, I probably lost about 90 to 95% of my friends and my connections
Hmm.
because we moved up to Charlotte um, based on our affiliation with the church.
Okay.
And so not only was the marriage, not only did the end of the marriage result in me having to quote unquote find new friends, I had to find a new career. I had to now balance trying to raise a child that I was no longer physically in that household on.
Hmm.
So that in and of itself was a pretty stressful journey.
Were you in ministry at the time, or did
Yeah,
that come later?
I was in ministry at the time, so that was a cloud of itself because as being in ministry, the D word, the divorce word is it's demonized.
It is.
And so I knew what I was missing or knew what I wanted, but I just did not understand the concept of I needed my peace.
Yeah.
And at this particular time, therapy was frowned upon.
Yeah.
It was almost as if everything had to come through the church, but there were some things that I truly believe that a therapist could have fixed.
Hmm.
But me being the typical man, I shunned at therapy. It wasn't until double digit years later that I said, hey, you know what? Let me try this therapy. Can't hurt.
It can't.
And so I have to admit that it was my stubbornness. I'm pretty sure, and I can say this with this a certainty that if I would have had therapy back prior to that divorce, we would still be married.
Okay. That's big, and that shows a lot of personal growth for you, because people don't want to. People usually don't admit, "Hey, this was my contribution to the breakdown, and if I had done this, then we may have been able to work through that." So, um, and I also agree. I like to tell people I am lay and I am very much ministerial support, but the church does not. It did not. I got in here. Support. We need more divorce care. We need more. Hey, this is going on. Let me help you. I was deathly embarrassed when I got a divorce. Because my dad was the pastor. So, it was like, oh, the pastor's daughter, da, 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 da. But your piece, we write off our piece to save face. And we really need to work on that within the confines of the church. Um,
Especially, and that's what it was for me. I had a very hard time with the divorce because some of my closest friends were in the church and we were all ministers. So there was a unspoken desire to compete. And what
mm,
I learned, especially from my peers, my male peers, is that we didn't share that information. And so you could possibly have 10 different men going through the exact same problem, but we would be silent and nobody knew it.
mm,
And so, there was a self ostracized. I had to, I was self ostracized from the church.
mm-hmm.
And so with that came a lot of church hurt, and
Yes.
it wasn't the church that did the hurt. I just failed to recognize my part, and I did not have any accountability. I mean, just to be honest, there was no accountability for my actions, so I wanted somebody to blame.
How did you work through that?
Oh, it took
That
a long time.
it
It
took a
it
long time.
literally it took a long time. I had a cancer scare back in 2013, I think 13 or 14, and I was immobilized for about a week, and it took that for me to come to my senses almost.
Mm, okay.
And in the coming to my senses, I had to go back and replay all of my actions and really own up to the fact that it wasn't the church. You know, it sounded like the church, but it really was my choices.
How many? And this is just speculation on both of our parts, but how much church hurt do you believe is self-imposed by people who say, "Hey, the church has really hurt me." Da, 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 da. But how much of that do you think could be just lack of self accountability?
I think probably about 75, 80%. And that's for me. And I was a leader in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the shameful part came in at, because I was a leader and I was screaming church hurt. And so I could easily point out everybody else's fault, but revelation didn't come until I started looking at me. And that was the hurtful part, because I had to swallow a lot of pride and come back and apologize to some people who I had silently blamed, because
Mm,
I wasn't man enough to say, "Hey, I'm leaving the church because of you." But the ones who were in tune with God, they knew that.
yeah.
Some didn't know, but I was, and it sounds a little crazy, but I was blessed enough to have a great wife at the time who covered me even during our
Look at
divorce.
that.
So,
Okay.
I was very grateful for the fact that she wasn't vindictive, because it would have been easier for her to just throw me out, to the wolves to save face.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a blessing, even when to because a lot of women, not men, women, none of it, going to cover you going through when you're going through something, because it is easier just to throw the other person out. Um, how did that during that time of church hurt? How do you think that spilled over into the other areas of your life?
It helped me to take accountability. Honestly, I've been, just to be transparent, it was always easier for me to blame a mishap or blame a failure on something or somebody else.
Hmm.
And so coming out of that church hurt, it enabled me to look at me first. It made me appreciate people first more, to the point where I don't discard people.
Okay.
I've grown to, I've learned how to put people in different seasons.
Okay.
Giving them certain access to me, and vice versa. So even when a person, quote unquote, thinks they're getting over, I'm not keeping score,
Hmm.
but I know when their season is up. I will never
Yes.
cut cord. However, there are certain access that will be denied, and it will be done so respectfully.
Yes. I believe in a good boundary. Um, you can have people in your life, but their access to you has to shift accordingly. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm with you on that, because we can still be, we can still associate, we can do all that, but you don't have to have the same level of access to
Correct.
me, and that's okay, because seasons, just like somebody said, life is just like the altar. People gonna come as others, go, others come. So I totally agree with that. How through the challenges and the ebbs and flows of life, how do you think that has affected you being a father?
It gave me a more it made me more transparent with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
especially my older my kids are my oldest is 22, my youngest is 11,
Okay.
and they are like night and day, and so my youngest is more reserved, but my oldest sometimes she's a spitting image of me, and me and her mom are both ministers.
Mm-hmm.
She comes to us for different needs and different seasons, and I respect that, and she knows that. And so when she calls me and said, "Hey, Dad, um, all men are dogs, or all men are this, or whatever," I can literally say, "Hey, let me tell you about a time when your daddy was in that role."
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't mind telling her about the times that I was Clark Kent, because she's used to me being the Superman in a cape,
Yeah.
and so I want to make sure that both of my kids see every side of me,
Okay.
so whether it's a struggle, whether it's me solving a problem, whether it's me helping them solve a problem, I've learned to take this experience and just make it more transparent, so that when they face something, that they know that they can come to me with it and not be a whipping post almost.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to shift one more time. Let's get into this clothing line.
Okay.
So, circling back, we're coming back into retail. So, how did we make the leap once again? Because, and really, we're doing things simultaneous because you're still in corporate America, but you've come back to your love. So, what triggered? What were you doing? Is like, hey, I'm gonna go back and dibble dabble a little bit into that, and dibble and dabbling turned into something full blown. How did we get from A to Z?
So once, probably back in 2004, um, I had a shirt for whatever reason. I used to work, so I worked in retail, and one of the things that we used to do when a customer come in that we knew wasn't going to buy anything, we would just throw out the blanket statement, "Let me know if you need something."
Mm-hmm.
So as I was, my peers would always say that, "Hey, you're gonna always ask that, but you don't really mean it." So one day during a store meeting, I had a shirt made, just simply said, "Let me know if you need something." They got a kick out of it. After the store meeting, I go to the gas station, and I'm pumping gas, and this lady walks up and she says, "I need my tank filled. I'm headed to Virginia. Can you help me get to Virginia?" And I'm totally forgetting that I had the shirt
Yeah,
on.
sure no.
Why, and so she sees it on my face, and she says, "Your shirt says, let me know if you need something. You
Mhm.
need anything." And that's a sign. She said, "I've been here for 2 hours, and I forgot it was less than $10." And she was like, "This is all I've been able to get." And I go fill a car, think nothing of it. I quit retail in 2009, 2010, and I'm coming out of Dave and Buster's. It's 2000. I think it was around 2014, and Dave and Buster just happened to be right by the spot that I work.
Mhm.
This lady stops me and she says, "Have you ever helped?" And so she replays the thing, and I'm like, "I remember that, but I didn't remember her." She was
Mhm.
like, "I am her." She's like, and so that stuck with me for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So when I'm sitting, it's 2021, and I'm seeing all of my peers that work in retail, and they have these startup jobs and things of that nature, not like
Mhm.
me. And
Yeah.
so I'm seeing them start side businesses and things of that nature, and I was like, I can do this,
Yeah.
And so the sole purpose of my shirts are basically just to start a conversation with a stranger. just point
Okay.
blank. Whether what, so it was all birthed out of that moment with that stranger.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that if I wouldn't have had that shirt on, she wouldn't have asked. And so she went on, and I got her number, and we still talk. We literally still talk, but that's how I birthed my business. I started thinking about it late in 2021, but I never put the energy to
Mm-hmm.
it. It was hard to come up with um, a good time, and fear is fear started presenting itself as facts.
Mm.
And so when fear presents itself as a fact to a person who overthinks, you're gonna bow down to fear, and that was me for about a period,
Okay.
for literally a 2 year period until I finally decided to launch it in January of 2023.
Oh wow. So this is still new.
Yeah, it is extremely new, and so being 7 months in, I've literally had to rethink and reorganize how I handle my day. And so I started ending the concept of this as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it as a job and started approaching it just like I do my corporate job.
Okay. And so that has started to shift the trajectory of how things are going. So what's your favorite shirt that you've created so far?
Ooh, my favorite shirt is a scene from Boys in the Hood where Trey is talking to his dad, and
Mm-hmm.
it meant a lot to me because I have my nephew with me. My nephew has been with me for the last 2.5 years,
Okay.
and so when I look at him and I think about all the things that I went through as a young man, and all of the decisions that I made due to a lack of somebody saying, "Hey, this is where you should go," that was the reason I put that shirt out.
Okay.
Because I think that especially young men who are growing up without a father figure can be one conversation from changing their life.
Yes.
And so I released that particular shirt during on Father's Day,
Okay.
and surprisingly, that has been my number one seller, and it was crazy because I'm getting more support from women, from sisters saying, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm going to support," and so I knew that that was going to be my biggest hurdle, just trying to reach an audience or trying to get an audience to feel what I felt when I thought of a shirt.
Yeah. Nice. So as we get ready to close, a couple more questions. Where did the name come from?
So I wanted something different, and so I thought for a long time I wanted to have something that was not either designed to empower the reader or the wearer. Reader, that's a name that basically mean a food from the gods, for the gods, and so the actual logo was originally designed to be
Okay.
a cup with thorns on it, including the handle, meaning that if you're willing to to drink from the cup, then you are designed to be empowered by what's in the cup.
No.
And so for the design, I didn't, though there are shirts designed for the body of Christ, I wanted to quote unquote be a Walmart of shirt designs. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be able to speak to not only just the body of Christ, but the culture in and of itself. One of the examples that I saw last week was somebody was commenting that they did not know LL Cool J was a musical artist before he became an actor.
Yes, I saw that.
And so for
I was
me,
baffled.
right, and so for me, I'm like, I think that our generation has to do better with bridging the culture,
Uh-huh.
because now we look at this new generation and they don't know anything about the generation that paved it before them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so some of my shirts are just as simple as a design from an old album cover. So I'm, and so I took the concept of, if I had a child in school and he wore, for instance, an LL Cool J shirt, it could prompt one of his teachers to bring up memories, or incorporate something from that past to connect the culture, because I think that there's a big disconnect with our generation and the younger generation.
Yeah. My son and I were getting something to eat Sunday, and I can't even remember what somebody, it was Stevie Wonder, came overhead, and he tilted his head, and I was jamming. He was like, "Mama, you know that song?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Who is it?" And I was like, "Son, you don't know who that is?" He was like, I said, "Listen to the voice, because Stevie has a very distinctive voice. It's not
Right.
like you can mix him up with somebody else." And he was like, "Is that Stevie Wonder?" I was like, "Yes, yes, it is." I was just about to say, I have failed as a parent if you don't know who Stevie Wonder is. So yes, there is a large gap, and a lot of these new artists are remaking the songs from our youth, and these new children really think that's a new song. No, baby, that's old.
Right, and it bleeds back down into the body of Christ as well, where you know people are deeming it old or old fashioned to go back to those hymns, but those hymns are what brought our people over.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
and so we I don't want to fail our youth by failing to bridge the Ty Tribbett's with the Shirley Caesars and
hmm
with the Ken Spirituals and things of that nature, because that's what brought us over. I don't want to be that generation to say, hey, now that we've gotten across that bridge, let's burn the bridge.
yeah, yeah. Because you can't burn the bridges. We need those.
And we as a culture, we are burning bridges without teaching our people how to build boats or teaching them how to swim.
Yes, yes. I totally agree with you on that. So, tell me, give me three things that you put in your spiritual, emotional, and relational cup every day that allows you to stay balanced.
8 hours of sleep. Very first thing, I try to get 8 hours of sleep because it gives me mental clarity.
Okay.
8 hours of sleep, um, a good 30 minutes of some type of physical activity. It becomes, for me, that's extremely important because I work remote.
Mm-hmm.
And working remote sometimes can seem like a prison. So whether that 30 minutes is walking outside or just walking around the mall or walking around Walmart, I need that 30 minutes to get me thinking.
Okay.
And then the last part is just a time of silence. No TV, no internet. Um, whether that silence is me reading, me studying, or me just thinking, 30 minutes of 30 minutes to an hour of just complete silence gives me the ability to have a Selah moment.
Okay.
So whether I'm transitioning from my business or whether I'm just doing something like calling my daughter via FaceTime or talking to my nephew when he's here, I need that 30-minute break just to break the monotony of that day.
Okay. Okay. Um, quiet time is important. I need my quiet time like first thing in the morning. Just me, silentness. Because if I don't get it, I'm off until I get it. Like my day is off.
I agree, and it makes it even harder if a relationship is involved, because now you have that particular aspect. So you have your regular job, relationship duties, parental duties, with the entrepreneurial duties. So I've learned that regardless of where my time is spent, I can only devote 100% to a particular area.
Okay.
So I give my full time 100%. I give my entrepreneurship 100%. And in terms of my children and a relationship, I still give them that 100%. And anytime I'm giving any area of my life more than 100%, then another area is lacking. So if I'm giving my job 150%, I had to borrow that other 50% from
Mhm.
somewhere in my area. And so that's how I determine when I'm out of balance, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
It does make sense. So this has been what's in your cup with Mr. Carter. Now, do you take custom orders? So can someone go on the website and be like, "Hey, bro, can I get such and such such?" Or do we just order strictly what's on the website?
I haven't started doing custom orders yet because my just to be honest, my design skills are not like I want them to be.
Uh huh.
And so right now I'm keeping it simple, but I'm hoping that as time go by, I will be able to do more custom things and more custom shirts and things of that nature.
Okay, awesome. So y'all go check him out. It's on the screen. Amaretta Concepts. Did I say that right?
I'm Rita
I'm
concepts.
Rita. I'm Rita. I'm sorry. I'm Rita Concepts. Go on there, buy a shirt, buy a couple shirts, buy all the shirts. Thank you very much.
Thank you
This has
very much.
been What's in Your Cup with Coach Ebony Lashelle. We'll see you next time. Y'all be blessed.